Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pets and inanimate objects, welcome to the Polis Box Live! It's the podcast and YouTube show that puts Doctor Who to dock. I'm Lee McMenemy. I'll be attempting to maintain order and decorum in this, our virtual courtroom, as we put yet another episode of Doctor Who on trial. But I won't be doing this alone, because I'm joined by two men who are the Birkin hair of Scottish Doctor Who fandom, not because of their illegal supply of cadavers to the medical trade, but because they're more than happy to take their clothes off for seedy men in Edinburgh's grass market in exchange for cold hard cash. It's Cameron Phillips and David Cummings.
I love that you've started with such a niche joke.
Well, all our audience, vast as they are in number, one person watching right now, are most likely based in Edinburgh or have been brought up in Edinburgh, so, it covers it. It's fine.
Oh, I didn't say it wouldn't land, I just said it was very niche. It got more and more niche as it went on. It was really nice.
It did, yeah.
Not being from Edinburgh, does this make me the token ethnic minority?
It does make you the token country bumpkin, Cameron, yes, it does.
Oh, nice. That's okay then. That's okay. It's good to know that I'm here on merit.
Welcome, everybody. I'd imagine there's probably quite a lot of you are maybe watching this for the first time tonight. We've been doing a podcast of the Polis Box for more or less the last 6 years in an audio format, but we've taken a leap now to go live and broadcast live on YouTube and Facebook Live and ruin the internet for everybody forever.
Yep, we didn't steal this idea from anyone. It's entirely original. Nobody we know has been doing it lately.
Yep, no one said, hey, we've been using this, how about you as well? We went, oh yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
None of that.
Nobody at all. No. So, given that we've probably got some new viewers, Cameron, do you want to explain how the Polis Box works?
Well, the Polis Box works. It's, as Lee was saying, a virtual courtroom setting. Lee is always used to be the judge for this, but we've kind of just been talking and saying that his power might be slightly diminished because we're putting it in the hands of the people. But Dave takes one side of an argument against one Doctor Who story. I take the other. Someone prosecutes, someone defends, and we run through a few points as to why that particular Doctor Who story is either good or bad, and then the vote goes to the public at the end, and then the decision is placed into the unofficial Doctor Who canon as to whether it's good or bad. Yeah. That's about it, isn't it?
That's basically it, yeah. I mean, the sort of basic idea was that we got so fed up with all these fan polls in Doctor Who magazine that are so predictable and always put, the Caves of Andrew's Anne, he's the finest example of Doctor Who ever. So we thought, nah, these people aren't being honest. They're not saying what they really feel. So this is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get people to leave their emotions at the door, their preferences, and just base it solely on the arguments of Dave and Cameron as to whether a certain episode deserves to be in our canon or not.
Yeah, everyone knows that Fear Heart is truly the best episode of Doctor Who, and Cameron's just afraid to admit it. And due to current events, we won't talk about Fear Heart anymore.
No, we can't ever talk about it again.
That show needs to be cancelled forthwith.
Yep.
So like I say, we've been doing this for a few years. Shall we go through some of the sort of episodes that have been found guilty and not guilty so far, just so people can get a general idea of where we are now?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay then, I'll bring up the guilties first. So these are all episodes that have been found guilty of crimes against Doctor Who by our listeners and now viewers. Some that you'd expect to see in there, like Time Lash and maybe Dark Water, Death in Heaven. A few that maybe don't belong in there or you wouldn't expect to find in there.
Yeah. Some of them I think are good.
I'm going back to all these ones that we've done.
Yeah. I love A Town Called Mercy.
Yeah,
I think that's a great
what we got. I can't remember
the TV movie is a debatable one,
yeah,
that's
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we should point out that not all of these have been.
You Face the Raven as well.
Yep, we did in fact argue Face the Raven. It was found guilty.
Yep. Yeah.
It was a while ago.
I should point out we're not deliberately talking over each other. Cameron's got country bumpkin internet because he lives down Dumfries and Galloway, so there's a slight delay on his end. So if we're talking over each other, then apologies, but yeah, it'll be fine. You'll understand.
Yeah.
Well, we'll work it out. It'll be fine.
We'll work it out. So those are all the guilties. Let's move on to some of the ones that have been found not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. And here's the first batch. Again, some that you'd expect to find in there. Horror of Fang Rock was our biggest sort of landslide by far. I think it's like 92% voted not guilty.
Yeah, time flight, not guilty. How did we manage that?
Because I put forward a very convincing argument for it. That's why.
Yeah. Time flight, Meglos. What?
Terminus as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But like I say, there are surprises in these lists. I mean, not all of them were kind of massive landslides, sort of victories or sort of, failings or whatever. Some of them were just like squeaking by a few percent here and there. So, it really comes down to individual votes in the end, that certain things survive that you might not expect to be in there. So some more that have been found not guilty. And there they are.
Strange enough, it turns out the Doctor Who fans quite like Doctor Who and don't think it's guilty of crimes. The Zygon invasion inversion. I think we did that 3 times in the space of a month, did we not?
Yeah, on various podcasts,
Yeah.
guesting with various other folk. So, yeah. But those are kind of all the episodes that have been found not guilty and guilty. Most of the time, it's Dave and Cameron going head-to-head, which is the format. It's how it's been for quite a while. The results of you two going head-to-head is pretty close in terms of wins. Overall, Dave has 19 wins, Cameron 18, so it's really, really tight.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably about fair. Occasionally one of us will get 3 or 4 wins ahead, but never that far.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a nice time to start doing it this way, that we've got almost even scores. So it's all to play for.
Yeah, pretty much. What we'll be doing, rather than individual episodes like we used to do, drawn at random, we decided we're going to do series at a time now. So we're going to start off with Series 9 in Old Money from Doctor Who's past, Jon Pertwee's first season as a Doctor. So tonight we're doing Day of the Daleks. Then in the subsequent 4 episodes we'll be doing Curse of Peladon, the Sea Devils, the Mutants and the Time Monster. And we'll have guests along to either prosecute or defend with us.
This still does mean that I'm going to have to prosecute Sea Devils at one point.
Yeah, you're prosecuting the entire series, Cam.
Yeah, there was... Sea Devils is the one that I'm kind of a bit about the minute. But I'll work out something. People just don't know that it's shite.
No, it's fine. People can tune in a few weeks' time to see you selling your soul for a cheap point in an internet quiz.
Yep, pretty much. But we'll see. To explain for people who maybe not watched or seen us before or listened to us, there are occasions when me or Dave will be prosecuting or defending when we actually believe the complete opposite, and it's a desperate attempt to try and hide that fact. And so see if you can recognise when that's happening.
It should be very, very obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, you can get in touch with us if you're watching along on YouTube and Facebook Live via these details down here. If I can get my finger in the right place above the camera. There we go.
Yep.
So you can send us a comment through the live chat box on YouTube or Facebook Live. We'll get them and we'll put them up on screen. We've already had a comment come through. Pulling us up on something more than a comment, because Mark Donaldson from On the Time Lash has been in touch to say we stole Cameron's John Barrowman gag, so it's fine that you've stolen our format.
Yeah.
I think I have to take kind of like an almost comedy communism aspect to that joke now, and the fact that it's everyone's
comedy communism.
Good old communism of comedy. It's everyone's joke now. You can all share it and enjoy it. Power to the people. And yeah, it's what Karl Marx would have wanted.
Yeah, when you think communism, you think a good laugh. That's what you think, isn't it?
Yep.
You do.
Fun and laughter for all.
A good old nice giggle. Yeah, pretty much.
Light-hearted fun and games
Right
for
then.
everyone.
Right then, so that's all the sort of admin bits out of the way. Shall we get on with it? Shall we go into our first trial of this series?
We
That's
probably
the
better
format.
because that is the format.
That's why we're here. Okay then, so it's time to go back to 1972. 2 Katie Mannings in the same time stream. We're going to do a bigger transit van. It's time to put Day of the Daleks on trial.
Oh, we lived in a house, a very big house in the country. Watching afternoon repeats and the food he eats in the country. He takes all manner of pills and piles up analyst bills in the country. Oh, it's like an animal farm, that's a rural
So, Day of the Daleks was written by Louis Marks, directed by Paul Bernard, produced by Barry Letts, and had music written by Dudley Simpson. It starred Jon Pertwee as the Doctor, Katie Manning as Jo Grant, Nicholas Courtney as Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, Richard Franklin as Captain Mike Yates, and John Levine as Sergeant Benton, with Wilfred Carter as Sir Reginald Styles, Anna Barry as Annette, Scott Fredericks as Boaz, Jimmy Winston as Shura, Valentine Palmer as Monia, and Aubrey Woods as the Controller. It was broadcast between Saturday the 1st of January and Saturday the 22nd of January 1972, and the viewing figures were 9.8 million for Part 1, 10.4 million for Part 2, and 9.1 million people for Parts 3 and 4. Before we get into the trial itself, shall we give a little bit of historical context to what was happening around the world when this episode was broadcast originally?
No, I think we should
If
go
we
straight
say
to the
no,
episode.
you're going to get if you say no, you're going to get disappointed. No, we don't want to hear that.
It would be very unfortunate because I prepared something, so let's find
Yeah,
out what was happening in the world.
Yeah, right, okay, let's go.
On this day in history. On January 9th, shortly after midnight, Britain's 280,000 coal miners walked off the job in the first nationwide miner strike since 1926, eventually leading to the 3-day week. Also on this day, Birmingham's Sunday Mercury broke the story of toxic waste dumping in the Midlands, and the government's indifference to complaints. The public outcry that followed eventually died down when everyone discovered that the bleak, hazardous mess in question was in fact Wolverhampton. On January 19th, the government announced the lifting of all restrictions on broadcasting hours on television and radio, and on January 20th, NASA scientists excitedly revealed the discovery of a huge mass expelling a steady stream of hot gases, slowly crushing the light and life out of all things unfortunate enough to find themselves in its orbit, or, as is more commonly known, Ian Levine. So there we go. You can't say we're not educational.
Did you prepare that in advance?
I did. That's why I was desperately trying to steer you into saying yes to finding out what happened in history.
But I kind of thought you had, so it was more funny if we said no.
Yeah. This will happen a lot, folks. They just gang up and bully me. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Gang up
it's
and
between
bully
you
you.
put yourself in.
We both said no, and you did it anyway. Who's the bully?
Okay, right. Enough of that. Shall we get into the trial itself for a little bit of listener evidence?
Ooh. Yes.
Oh yeah, go on.
Okay.
We do like listener evidence. Yes, carry on.
Just to explain listener evidence, we get people to submit their comments on the episode we're talking about on Twitter. So let's find out what the people have been saying.
This is the law, chapter 1.
Okay, then, first bit of listener evidence tonight comes from All of Time's podcast. They say about Day of the Daleks, it's definitely the best Pertwee Dalek. Worst is Planet of the Daleks. Fair? Not fair? Feel free to jump in and say.
Well, you went really crackly for me there. But that's fine.
You did a
'cause I
bit,
read
yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, but you can see
Yeah,
it on the screen,
I
so you
read
get a
it
general
too.
gist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're only doing one of them stories tonight.
Yeah. I think we should
So,
come back
yeah.
to that piece of evidence at the end and see whether we agree with it or not.
Okay. All right, we can do that. More listener evidence. We also have a comment from Richard George, who says, solid story until you watch the special edition, which does so much to turn it into something really special.
And that's the thing, like all
This
Doctor
is kind
Who
of a
fans-
conversation we had.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've got lots of different versions of this. So we're all watching different versions slightly, because everyone's got a different version. So the rule we kind of go with is, if it's in the original version that was screened, that's roughly what we're judging it on. But
Yeah.
if there's reasonings behind it being better or changed for a different reason, we'll listen to the arguments.
I am
Yeah,
going
I
into
think
this
it's-
having not seen the special edition.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. I think it's only fair that we do the original version as broadcast, because that's how it was intended to be seen. So, well, we can refer to the special edition stuff if we want to, but I think stick with the original broadcast stuff where we can.
Oh yeah, we'll probably get into a
Yeah.
conversation about improving it later on. I would imagine that'll come into it.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will. Okay, more listener evidence. This one is from Kenny Smith, who says, I like Day of the Daleks, but I don't love it the way that I love Death to the Daleks. It's well made, pacey and well cast, but perhaps it's a little too sombre for my tastes. The Controller is one of the best villains of the Pertwee era and my favourite thing in it.
Yep, I don't like the way you've edited that. I just like the fact that you said, I love death. You added in all of the Daleks
I picked
after
up
that.
from that as well. I was like, going,
Yeah. He just loves death.
Much like people
Just
watching this
like-
tonight, they'll be praying for death also.
bring me Daleks or bring me death.
Yeah, I
And
think that was
finally,
quite
we
defensive.
have... Okay, we've still got one more, look, Dave. Alex Gibbons has been in touch to say it's a very good story, but unfortunately it gets a bit lost by the end. I think the audiobook is better than the TV episodes.
I think that probably goes back to the earlier points about
Again,
we're
haven't
doing
heard the
TV
audiobook.
episodes. Yeah, I mean we could just watch it with like the screen turned off, but I don't think that would be the same.
It would be like a telesnap.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't start
your
on
favourite thing in the whole
telesnaps.
world, Cam. No, don't start telling.
Oh, I love telesnaps. People, if you're new to the Polis Box, you'll have to come to realise how much I love telesnaps. Absolutely, with all my heart. Adore watching a good old telesnap and seeing two photos interspersed by sounds of shuffling feet.
Right, that's all the listener evidence. Just before we get started properly, I should point out that voting is now open on this episode. So based on the arguments put forward by Dave and Cameron tonight, you get to decide whether Day of the Daleks is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. There's a link in the little ticker running along the bottom. I've also put a link in the Facebook Live and YouTube description. So if you go there, cast your vote on whether you think Day of the Daleks is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. And we'll reveal the result at the end of the episode.
etc.ch/YQ3. That's catchy, I'll give you that.
It's catchy, isn't it? Yeah. Aye. That's why I put it as a clickable link in the description.
That's probably the best idea.
That's probably the best idea. Right then, let's get started. Cameron is going to be prosecuting Day of the Daleks. Dave is going to be defending. So let's start on a positive note, shall we? Dave, do you want to give us your first point for the defence, please?
I think I'll start with the big point on this one, and it's the Doctor himself. You don't realise it when you watch all of the modern, like the new Who stuff, how dull and angsty and scared and annoying the Doctor is in almost every one of them. You've got Tennant, the love-struck teenage boy. You've got Eccleston that hates everything. You've got Jodie, who's like a teenage boy that's just found out he's been adopted. And he's going, I don't know who I am anymore. But you watch this and the Doctor is just so relaxed and happy with who he is. Yeah, he wears ruffled shirts. Yeah, he drinks all the wine. He doesn't care. He's not doing it to impress people. That's just who he is. And there's so many scenes in this where he's just like, yeah, I know more than you. But he's not trying to prove it. If this was made now, then the Doctor would be lost and homeless and doesn't have the TARDIS and couldn't speak to his people. But now it's just like, yeah, there's wine in the cellar. I'm happy. Who wants a fight? And it's a really nice, relaxed Doctor who's comfortable in his skin. And I think that's something that we've maybe moved too far away from. So that's the first point for the defence. The Doctor is a good Doctor in this. He's not necessarily a good person, but he's a really good Doctor.
It is that period of time where the Doctor was almost the voice of reason in each kind of situation, because in this one obviously you've got Unit, who are essentially just running round a country house trying to establish some kind of order. You've got the fella off to Peking to try and stop talks that'll, or start talks to end World War III or stop it from even beginning. Yeah, I mean, we can say that about Pertwee, and yes, it's a certain freshness looking back on it now from what we've got with the Doctor currently. But you could probably say that about any Pertwee episode then, in that case, not just this.
Tune in next time for my first point for the next episode.
Yeah, it's probably a point you could raise every single one for this. It's not really a unique thing to this. It's not a case of, if this was like Pertwee's first one, I could probably let you get away with that. But it's not. We're not doing Spearhead from Space. It's like he's been the Doctor for, as we say, this is like his third season, isn't it?
Yes, but at no point did any of the Doctors that I mentioned ever relaxed into just being the Doctor. By the end of it, Tennant was just staring at space and crying all the time. Jodie didn't know who she was. And I really
think
want
you'll
to go
find
one season.
Tennant was standing in a rain shower and crying.
Yes.
That's what he was doing a lot of.
In this episode that we are discussing, the character of the Doctor is a really good version of the Doctor that I really like when compared with other versions of the Doctor. So in this story, the story we're discussing, I like the Doctor. And I know that'll be shocking news to many listeners.
It'll be
Doctor
shocking
Who
news
fan
to a
likes
lot
the
of
Doctor.
listeners. How very dare you like the Doctor in these stories? It does
Call yourself a
kinda-
Doctor Who fan, liking
I know,
Doctor
I'm
Who.
liking the main character. Right off. It does seemingly, though, result in him... there is a line in this, actually. I think Joe says it. And that he's essentially conducting a one-man cheese and wine evening.
Yes.
And there does seem to be about 2 or 3 occasions where that's the case. He's so relaxed in his own skin, it's almost an episode of Food and Drink at some stages, this one. You half expect like Julie Golden to pop up from behind a Dalek and go, kind of go, and here we have a Gorgonzola paired with a lovely Italian.
Yeah, he's going to say at some point that they've paired the wine with the wrong cheese and send it back.
Yeah, and there are going to be recipe tips along the bottom of the screen, which people...
Yeah. If there's any Doctor that's going to be a food and wine snob, it's going to be Pertwee's Doctor.
Oh, it's totally going to be Pertwee. Jesus Christ. So yeah, it does lead to a kind of character for Pertwee play, and it's difficult to have a pop at Pertwee being the Doctor because I do like the Pertwee Doctor, but it does in this instance. On this story, if we're concentrating on just this story and just this story alone, it does seem to lead to him almost being too relaxed. It's like, you might as well just be conducting business on a chaise lounge and just kind of go, yes, you go over there, it's all fine, yes, I'll just sit here and drink the wine, yes, you wreck the Daleks, yes, humankind will destroy itself, yes, you fight them. So almost too relaxed, I would say, against that.
Fair enough.
Okay, on that point of Pertwee being a food and wine snob, we've had a comment from Russelon's Trousers who says pairing a Gorgonzola with a lovely Italian is what got John Barrowman in trouble in the first place.
Yes!
Just so you're clear, Russelon's Trousers, you're now owed Cameron at least £5 in joke royalties.
Yes, that's the copyright coming through. It's my pension plan. How do you know? Sorry, a minute ago it was communist comedy, wasn't it? Now I'm making money off it. I can't really have both. Done myself in there.
You go straight to capitalism when it suits you, why don't you?
Damn communists!
Who do you think you are? Keir Starmer?
Yeah. What the Tories are doing, but just less shit. No.
A little bit of politics.
little bit of politics. They like it up them. Yep. Anyway, by the by.
Yes.
Okay. Are we done with that initial point then? We discussed everything we can do about Jon Pertwee's Doctor.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Until
Happy?
the
Okay.
next episode.
Until the same time in a fortnight. Okay then, Cam, let's have your first point for the prosecution of Day of the Daleks then.
There's a consistent flatness to this story throughout all 4 episodes, and I'm talking scenery and lighting wise and just this overall sort of malaise around it. From the opening shot, when I was watching it for the second time through today, the opening shot is in the country house and it's dark as anything. There seems to be one light there, and I know it's would this be done through the strikes, or would that have been taken effect yet? I don't know if that was maybe part of it, that they couldn't use maybe as much power as they wanted to with lighting. But holy moly, it is dark and a bit dull, and the future's essentially wrapped in tinfoil.
Yep.
It just feels kind of still, as far as I'm concerned, when I was watching it again.
Yeah, it's weird. We're going to do that thing where we're going to take each other's point and say, kind of turn it around. Because one of the points that I've got is the country house set is a nice juxtaposition to the well-lit, clean settings of the future.
Anyone there?
We're still here.
Yeah. Has Cameron gone silent? I win!
We should point out that Cameron's internet connection is also from 1972.
Everything was spinning. Hello, I'm back.
You're back.
Yes. No, I was merely saying that I like the darkness of the country house compared with the bright, shiny future. Even though the bright, shiny future was run by the Daleks and everyone was a slave, at least they were carrying around clean bins on their shoulders. Shiny stainless steel.
I think I'm just about back.
But did you hear any of my last point, Cameron?
I did not hear any of your last point, Dave, no.
Excellent.
It's live, folks.
It was insightful cutting commentary.
They told us this was the future.
Yep.
They did.
Somebody went back into the past and killed Cameron's internet.
Pretty much, yeah. Feels that way.
Yeah.
Right.
I like how the internet waits until I've made my first point and then it starts going crazy.
Okay, Dave, why don't you recap your point there for Cameron's benefit?
So my point was there might have been a deliberate juxtaposition between the dull, grimy, dirty, dark 70s and the bright, shiny future. Because it's not until relatively late on that we find out the future is actually really quite crap and horrible for most people. Because we see the future and it's like the Blake 7 Star Trek shiny future. It's the hopefulness. And that's juxtaposed with the current fear-filled 1970s, the world's going to end house. So I think it might have almost been a deliberate choice. But you're right, it is quite dark. And I hadn't actually thought that it might be due to the strikes and the cuts. But it might be, you might be right.
It crossed my mind that it might well be. I mean, it's not even like a bright future. It's just, there's like this kind of almost like sickly green lighting in the future scenes, and it's all just literally just rooms wrapped in sort of tin foil, and the only kind of like sort of bright part is like a bunch of grapes here and there and an apple.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite dark, but let's face it, most television back then does look dark when you watch it now. It's dark and it's blurry because it's low definition, built for small screens. It's also, I think, possibly because of the way things were filmed, because British television wasn't filmed in Technicolor. So you watch like old Star Trek, the original Star Treks, those are full of bright colours because they filmed in Technicolor. You watch classic films, they're the same thing. Whereas British TV seemed to have been filmed on crayons rubbed on a bit of glass. And they didn't clean it properly, so it just kept going over and it got duller and darker and dirtier. So yeah, I'm not disagreeing that it was dark. I'm just not sure if it was darker than everything else.
It would be a bit jarring, though, to have sort of a bright, white, cleanly lit, futuristic set in what's essentially a dystopian future. Surely it should look dirty and grimy and black.
But it did, because it started out that it was shiny and bright and everyone had the matching haircuts and matching outfits. And then as we found out more about it, we found out they were the elite few, and everyone outside of that was either a rebel with a bad haircut or some kind of hobo carrying around a shiny bin. So, yeah, I think it was almost a bait and switch, because you saw the future, thought, oh, the future's bright and shiny. And then it turns out that no, it's just as shit as now is.
But I can understand that if you got some like a couple of shots of like if they went to absolute town on that the building that they're in the future where the controller is, if it was kind of like brightly lit and quite clean looking and very like pristine, but it just seems dull as well. And as to say, the factory we get is a few folk carrying around bins, and it's not as if that it's fine. That's going to be dull and grimy and things like that, but it doesn't get really that far from building somewhere in a quarry as it usually is.
Yes.
Okay, we're done arguing that one?
Yep.
Okay, it seems like that one's run out of steam pretty quickly, so let's go back to Dave. No, a point for the defence, please.
The lighting was shite.
Yep.
Needed higher wattage bulbs, that's essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah.
All right, Dave.
Cameron's point for the prosecution was the lighting was shite. My defence is 72, everything was shite.
Just sum it up, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To boil it down to its nuts and bolts, yeah. All right, Dave, do you want to give us another point for the defence of Dave the Daleks, please?
This one's going to be another character story. It's the controller, because he gets such a turn in this. You see him being slimy and nice to Joe. You see him being argumentative with the Doctor, and the big part of his character development is his change towards the end. And it's not often that you see a character change towards the end who isn't about to die, or isn't, facing death or facing something like that. Because normally it's a deathbed change when it's too late and they're just trying to do what they can. This guy has thought about things, he's had arguments put to him, and he knows the Daleks are probably going to kill him when they find out, but he does it anyway. He actually decides to go on the side of humanity and rebel against the Dalek Masters, just because it's the right thing to do. Nobody's holding him hostage, he's under no threat, it's just an actual human decision. And it's nicely teased in the third part when the Doctor has a go at him, and then the Daleks treat him the same way as he was treating his underlings. And his explanation of why he turns is very much like the War of the Worlds intro, where they're like, in the future there is a war. By the end of the 21st century there are multiple wars. That just reminded me of the intro of the War of the Worlds. And that was obviously after this. So I think the way it's done, it's a nice character development story, which you don't often get for the bad guys in Doctor Who. Usually it's a bad guy that dies, or it's a bad guy that changes just before they die, or there's this constant bad guy. So I think the fact that he changes and does the right thing, not under the threat of death, is a very unusual and nice piece of character development.
I'd be willing to buy that a lot more if it didn't suddenly happen in the 4th episode of 4. There is a sudden turn for the controller, usually seemingly with about 15 minutes to go, and we get the other guy that suddenly pops out of nowhere, seemingly the soldier guy in the guard that is going to replace him, and he ends up working with the Daleks instead, and they essentially just kill the controller and then promote this other guy in this sort of what you assume to be a never-ending chain of murdering. I would get your point, and yeah, he's a good character, and yeah, he does tick it along a fair bit, but if you were going to do that, and you were going to make him face turn, then you probably want to be setting up a little bit earlier, like maybe leaving the halfway point, or at least have a smattering of it, rather than just suddenly doing it. It feels like they just suddenly went, oh, we need something for this guy to do, and this guy, to tie up his loose ends. Oh, let's just have him do this, and then it's real quick. You would have introduced the guy that replaces him a lot earlier, I think, and maybe had him sort of scheme slightly, and then lay the groundwork for that. But as it is, you meet him. Their first conversation together only really comes in about halfway through episode 4.
Yeah, but the guy that takes over from him, I believe, is the guy that tortured the Doctor and enjoyed it. So you're already showing that he's an evil underling. So you know he'd turn on his boss in a moment. And you also know he's into torture, so he'd happily work with the Daleks. Whereas the controller is third generation. He's removed from the torture and the badness. He's just looking at the numbers. He is the guy that makes the trains run on time to the camp. But at the end, he decides, no, these camps are wrong. This is wrong what we're doing. And there is always, as you say, the guy who's willing to take over, who's the fascist underling into torture.
It's not like it comes out of nowhere, though, in episode 4. I mean, the previous episode to that, he has a bit of an argument with the Doctor, and he tries to justify the things he's done by, I was doing the right thing when I could. That he's saved lives, and he's kind of spared people from the Daleks and so on. So he's not entirely good, but he's done good things, however flawed the setup might be. So,
but you don't get anything from that conversation, of at least I didn't anyway, that it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna have a reconsider his actions here. Like you say, eventually he just argues that essentially it's the usual excuse, Nuremberg trial excuse of, I was just following orders, and that's where it's got him. And he doesn't really express anything wrong with that. There's no kind of like moment of him going, oh aye, it's a bit shit, isn't it? He just walks out, and when it gets to that kind of crux point of the conversation, he just kind of goes, I need to go now. And then off he goes, and that's it. So yeah, there is a conversation where he kind of lays that bit out, but it's not like he's there just kind of going, oh yeah, and the Doctor's seemingly known to have convinced him otherwise. It's the opposing view. Doctor starts talking about how not many planets need to bring in an alien race of thugs to protect their interests that he knows that are peaceful and loving, which is correct. And it's not like there's any kind of indication that kind of talk is changing his mind. He literally just walks away from it.
So what you'd like is a scene where he's like back in his room singing, Dear Diary, today I met a man. He made me think about things. Like, he's had the scene with the Doctor where the Doctor argues his point, and then an episode later, the guy changes how he feels about things because he's been thinking about it.
There's a bridge there between the two. And I say, if it wasn't so late on in the story, then you might get away with it as is. But it is really late. And it feels like a loose end being rapidly tied up because they're running out of time.
okay, any more on that?
I'm done.
Anything further you want to say, Dave? Okay, right, we're battering through them. Cam, do you want to give us another point for the prosecution?
I'm probably going to fire away now with my biggest point against this story.
Okay.
For being a Dalek story, we really don't see them that much, apart from shouting at the controller and rolling around the tunnel halfway through. They crop up at the end, 3 of them, to wheel towards the house, but that's really the only piece of action they get. You could probably take the Daleks out of this and not send Terry Nation the check. When I watched it again today, I was struck by the fact that the Daleks initially only seemed to come into it for the cliffhangers. Mm-hmm. And that's it. So for being a story called Day of the Dalek, they're not in it a lot. And you could, with a little bit of tweaking, probably just write them out completely. And even just have, like, the 2 sets of humans in the future, the rebellion and the organised, the rulers of the factories and things like that in the future, and still have that, and it would probably still just about work.
Yeah. I suspect they're probably just written it at the last minute, because this was originally just supposed to be the Ogrons in this story. The Daleks didn't feature at all.
Well, it doesn't. So, if you're going to say that, doesn't surprise me at all.
They're a very late edition, so maybe that's why.
And I mean, I know this was like, the first time we've seen the Daleks in 5 years, but it doesn't give you that kind of like, this is a fantastic Dalek story and it's based around the Daleks. I mean, I was trying to, I don't know, we're not talking about other Dalek stories, but I was trying to sort of work through my head as like kind of going, is this probably one of the weakest Dalek stories? Because, obviously, Genesis is in the position it always has been. Remembrance will always have a sort of place in my heart because it was the first one I ever watched all the way through. So I was trying to sort of have a little mini league table in my head of Dalek stories and where this would come, and I think it would be pretty low.
That's only if you're kind of basing it on the Daleks themselves. I mean, if you take even just as the regard that the Daleks don't do this much in it, it's still a pretty good story. It's not a duffer by any means, really.
And they did also only have 3 Daleks when they filmed it. Like, the
Yes, I
reason they
was
only
reading
show
that
3,
this
that's all they've
afternoon.
got.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
which is part of what the special edition fixes, kind of thing. Which we'll probably get to that later. But yeah, but if you are gonna say Day of the Daleks, you kind of want the Daleks to be front and center, surely. Otherwise, it's a bit false advertising. It might be, it may well, possibly, some people might see it as a good story, but
Yeah.
it's not like if you're putting the Daleks on the poster, you kind of want them in when you pay your entrance fee, and they
Yeah, but
really ain't a lot of them
they
in
always
this
do
one.
that kind of thing with the Daleks. It's like, oh, they're going to be in the Christmas special, and then it turns out the reveal at the end is it'll be in the next episode, and stuff like that. The Daleks are never in it much, mostly because they are not great. I'll be honest, the Daleks are not a great character because they have no character. They're not great for exposition because they just shout a lot. They're not great for action scenes because they're basically shopping trolleys. So as much as they are scary, you're also very hamstrung by how much you can use them.
I think we do witness the shopping trolley problem at the very end of this story in the original
Yeah.
version. There is one, bless him, that's trying to get through a window and really can't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They do
the
obviously
Daleks-
cut it before he had a chance to.
Yeah, the Daleks promise a lot, and they are the big baddie. But as much as they were scary, and they can be scary, they're very much a sci-fi baddie because they are completely non-human. So they're not that much of a threat of a character because they have no character. So you have to use other things. If you want something that's going to hunt you down through a tunnel, it's not going to be a Dalek, it's going to be an Ogron. If you want somebody that's going to explain to you why it's right that slaves have to die down the pit, then it's going to be the controller. Because a Dalek would just go, people die, it's good. And you go, yeah, you're a Dalek, nobody cares, me. So yeah, they're not in this that much, but I think that's a good thing. Because A, they only had 3, B, the voices were shit, and C, they're not great for moving stories forward. Dalek stories are always moved forward by the people and things that are around them.
Do we think the Ogrons are in this to take a quite literal part of the heavy lifting of the story, as well as the action?
Yes.
Because
I
they
would
seem to be
suspect
doing a lot of this that would have been original Dalek stuff, but they've kind of worked out we can't really roll Daleks through this canal side
Yeah.
full of grass and rocks. So
Or-
let's
or
get
even
some
a
people
lawn that needs cut.
dressed as monkeys.
Barry, get the boards! Get the boards, Barry!
Get the boards! Get the boards! Need like a 4-wheel drive Dalek. Just
Just stuck to the front of a Land Rover. We'll fix it in post, it's fine.
a Dalek Land Rover. Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah, we can. But yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I know you're trying to say, we're using them sparingly, and that's great. But all I would say is, during this whole story, they just seem to come across as like nagging wifeys in a room upstairs somewhere. They're not usually just, whereas in other Dalek stories, they are the story. Like, as I say, if we can pick Remembrance, it's a fucking civil war, you know what I mean, between 2 different Dalek factions and getting caught up in between it. And it's like, in here, it's just literally this one guy who gets in contact with them, goes through to the room next door, gets shouted at by them, and that's pretty much it until the end. When, there's a couple in the time till halfway through, and then at the end where they storm it. That is pretty much your involvement. And when Lee's saying, this story was originally just going to be about Ogrons, it probably would have still worked that way.
Probably, yeah.
You wouldn't.
Like always, they have to shoehorn the Daleks in.
Yeah. I mean, it's shown that
Yeah,
it can be done with just the Ogrons anyway, because they do it with is it Frontier in Space they're in as well. Essentially filling the same sort of purpose that they're doing here, but carrying the story by themselves as a sort of main villain.
Yeah. So there's a precedent for them doing that, but it's a Dalek story. It's a Dalek in name that doesn't really need the Daleks there, is my big problem with it. And when I was watching it again today, that is still my biggest problem with this story.
I think a lot of that might also be practical considerations. Because, as we know, they did only have 3. So if one of those got damaged or broken, they'd be down to 2. And it would look even worse in the final scenes to have just, one and a broken Dalek trundling across the grass.
Yeah. And
Yes.
they're not the best nick to start off with. If you get
No.
the close-ups in a Blu-ray box set, they're absolutely tatty. It's like
Yes.
they've been stuck in a stone cupboard for 5 years, clearly, and not been dragged out since Patrick Troughton's time. So, if they're going to be that shoggy, you
They
don't
do
want
look
to put
a
them at risk.
little bit. Yeah, they do look a little bit like
Yeah.
they're hanging in there.
Yeah.
They don't appear to be the beings in command of an entire planet.
No. But then again, as we said, we don't know what sort of Nick Dalek. I want to say costumes. Is that the right term for a Dalek
Props.
that they used?
Yeah. Yeah,
Props,
is probably
probably.
better.
Yeah, usable
Yeah.
props. Yeah, because I say randomly on my Facebook Marketplace, there was someone locally selling one for about $1.5 grand. And we go, I think it's still there.
Surprising
So
that,
you say,
isn't
we
it?
need to organise. I know it's weird. I want to basically, if money was no object, definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, but for that much money, you could probably get somebody to build you a nice one.
You probably would like, wouldn't you? How much
Yeah.
do you think a Dalek? Totally sidetracking you. How much do you think a Dalek would cost to build from scratch?
On the open market, how much would the Dalek go for?
On the open market, how much would a Dalek go for?
A proper
Could you make a
full-size
profit
job
building-
you could sit in.
Yeah. Do you think if you had the skill and the material, you could build Daleks for profit? Is what I'm saying.
Yes. I
Or
think
would there
the
be
problem-
communist Daleks? Would there be Daleks for all?
No, I think the problem
Would
is...
you build like a
we'd
standard
find out
model
how much
Dalek
people
that
would
everyone
pay.
had?
No, you'd find out how much people would pay, and that's how much you charge, and then all of a sudden nobody could afford it because you're the fanny charging 20 grand for a Dalek,
Oh,
just so that Ian Levine can buy it and tell you it's the wrong colour.
probably, yeah. I mean, what are we saying? For a Dalek, what, 3 loaves of bread?
Couple of bottles of nice wine and some cheese, maybe, just to offer us a wee barter.
A quart of ale? Yeah.
I mean, if only we had some sort of, device for looking up things like this to our
Yeah.
disposal, we could find out how much a Dalek goes for
And
as a custom-made one.
we could, but sadly we'll never know.
I'll never know.
Anyway, before we go completely off topic, as we all want to do, see, these are the bits that Lee usually edits out,
Yep.
and now we don't have that luxury.
No filter.
Nope, none at all. None at all. Anyway, yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
Done. Anything
Yep.
further to add on that one then, Dave?
No, I think we argued that out quite well. We both
Oh.
kind of agree the Daleks could have been used better.
Okay. All right then. Nice and cordial. Right, Dave. Your turn again. Another point for the defence, please.
Let's see
Defensive.
what I want to go with. See, that's the problem. Usually you used to be able to and ah and fill time and space while you worked out what your next point was going to be.
Yeah, I'm finding that too.
Yeah. So, I've done 2 of the main characters. Now I'm going to do the story. Now, not the actual story of this episode, but the main overarching themes of this story. This is Terminator. Go back, change the past, save the future. It's not just Terminator. This also literally inspired X-Men Days of Future Past. The guy that wrote that said this story was one of the inspirations.
Really?
So this story, yes,
All
because
right, I know that.
he thought, I want to do a thing where people go back in time and fix it. It's on Wikipedia. It must be true.
Oh yeah,
So I'm sure this
totally,
is the
yeah.
only example of this sort of story in the whole of science fiction.
But it's one of the early versions of it on screen
Sure, I suppose, yeah.
because, I mean, you've got, not War of the Worlds. What's the other one? Where he goes back in time. The Time Machine.
Yeah, H.G. Wells, yeah. Aye.
H.G.
Yeah,
Wells'
the
Time
other,
Machine.
the H.G. Wells story about time travel. It's not War of the Worlds. It's a time machine. Yeah.
Time Machine, yeah. Where he
Yeah.
goes back in time, and he goes forward in time, and he sees everything change. But there's not many time travel stories where it shows the effect you can have. And this has got to be one of the early ones on TV, where you actually have somebody discussing what happens if you go back and change your own history. So, it's not often that we've seen that, and it's a really well done way they do it, because at the end, there's this discussion of, yeah, but that guy that we've sent back might be the one that causes the explosion, that causes the problem in the future. And that could be really, really confusing. But in the episode it doesn't seem confusing because you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That guy that's left there has got loads of explosives. That's going to cause the Big Bang. That causes the problem. It's all just a misunderstanding.
It's a good twist that all this is just down to their actions and not anybody else's. That they caused this for themselves.
Yeah. It's very much, in some ways, a closed story. Because they cause their own problem, then they go back and fix their own problem, and that's it. And it's just a closed loop. And it's nicely done because this kind of timey-wimey nonsense could be really confusing. But they build up to it slowly. Where there's like, is there anyone else of your people in the past? And they go, no, there's not. Oh, actually, there's that one guy. Ah, all right. And what's he got with him? Some kind of radio gear? Oh, actually, wait a minute. He's also got a fuck ton of explosives. and then the doctor goes, what do you think could have caused that explosion? Then they go, wait a minute. And it's just
There's
really
a whole ton of Dalekanium.
Yeah. Yes. I hoped you weren't going to mention the word Dalekanium because I can't fucking defend that.
Has Dalekanium actually ever came into it since? I couldn't remember.
I think it's in the Tenant two-parter, the one that's in New York, because I'm sure they've got Dalekanium strapped to the top of the Empire State Building or something. Because I had the same thought as well. I kind of thought, this seems familiar.
The thing with fuck
yeah.
aye.
I think it's Dalekanium.
Yeah, I was racking my
it.
brains. I just kind of literally just raised my eyebrow and went, Dalekanium? Is that it?
Yeah. If anyone can confirm that, send us a message on YouTube and you know.
No,
yeah,
it's Dalekanium.
I say we would check,
It's
but, now,
Dalekanium?
but we're kind of busy.
Yeah. I've got multiple screens
Dave's
open. It's
checked.
fine. It's Dalekanium. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave's got his nerve centre open. And here will I control the world. All Dave needs is a cat, just to kind of, you know. But anyway, yeah, I thought Terminator as well when I watched this. Weirdly, I don't remember thinking that the first time round, but the second time round today was definitely. This is very Terminator-ish. Again, it didn't need to involve Daleks, did it? But anyway, yeah, it's smart the way that they end up. There's like when they're explaining what happened. There's a whole thing about how the guy's saying, and Styles betrayed everyone, and he, the bomb blew up, and that's when World War III started, and we've been at war ever since. So it's almost like a comment on how, they are fighting for a cause which has now just been reduced to like hearsay kind of thing. It's not even something that they know is true or not. They're just kind of doing it because that's what they're told to do, and that's what, that's what someone's told them, who told them, who told them kind of idea. So yeah, smart in the way of doing that, but again, kind of just feels a little bit tacked on again at the end because it's part of that rush through for the last half of episode 4 that just kind of desperately tries to do all this. Again, I probably would have liked more setup for that beforehand, before we started getting, the guy with the bomb in the basement of the house at the end. But yeah, clever, but could have been probably laid out a bit sort of in a more structured fashion than just bolting out at the end.
What, you mean they could have shown them earlier on with explosives in the past like they did in, I think, episode 2? And they could have shown that one of their people was left behind like they did in episode 3. But more just built up and not just throw all in there in episode 4, Cameron, yeah? Alright, that's your point.
But no, just like, that I'm talking about, how it's one of them guys with the bomb that caused it. Throw some doubt in there.
Do you want it just like revealed in the first episode? Like
Not
somebody's
revealed,
just standing
but
there
just,
going,
hinted at.
so
Come
what we're
on.
going to do in episode 4 is this. We'll find out that guy over there has got the bomb. Like,
Come back in a fortnight to see it happen.
We're going to go with
Doctor Who does Columbo.
Clarence there, who has the bomb. Clarence! Do you have the Dalekanium? Yes, I do. Do you not think it's a stupid name? No.
No, Clarence is a fine name.
It's for destroying Daleks. What more do you want?
That will stand the test of time, though. Use it again in 40 years.
We've used it again in 40 years as a kind of side-handed reference.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you mean this show's going to be on air for 40 years? Not quite.
Kinda.
Kinda yeah and kinda no. But anyway, to the basement.
While we're on the subject of the Dalekanium, I think we should take a moment outside of this trial, just to give special congratulations to the guy that plays Shura, who is making the most of his small part in Doctor Who. I have never seen a mercenary skip and jump so much in my life.
He's fairly tanking it, like.
It's like,
Give him
I mean,
that.
the director called Action, he took it very literally.
He did, and you get like all sorts of. Yeah, he's making the most of that payday.
Yeah, it's changing the past for the medium of interpretive dance at points.
Pretty much, yeah. I think he is. It's just like, if you just like to go to the past and pretend to be a tree. Great.
No, that's Mark of the Rani.
Interpretive dance.
Oh, so it is, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Sorry. I forgot you could do visual jokes on this now. That's one advantage.
Yeah. The one benefit.
The one benefit.
Okay. Anything more to chuck on that one then?
Not really.
I don't think so.
No. Okay. In that case, Cam, it's back to you. An hour point for the prosecution, please.
Can we talk about the speech and the dialogue in this and the odd choices therein?
No.
Okay, fine. Whilst in the future, I don't quite know why all the humans in the future seem to have to, especially they seem to be operating any kind of machinery, or computers anyway, have to very much talk like this. This is what it is, and this is that, and yes. And also, the Dalek voices are probably the worst I've heard in this story. Holy God, they take forever to say anything. And when you combine that with Ogron's just going, in some scenes it feels like this is being played in slow motion. It's just weird. I'm like going, who made this choice? And I know we maybe haven't established a full-on Dalek voice style going forward. We have now, but it just felt bizarre how you would choose it. It makes it scenes that should be fairly quick fire seem to go on for weeks.
I think what you have to kind of remember here is this is the first time in 5 years that the Daleks had been in Doctor Who, and there was no repeats.
Have they just woke up? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Good morning, guys. Exterminate.
Good morning. I need my coffee.
World domination, eh? Oh. Who's got the croissants?
Uploading hatred.
This is the first time they've been at. This is the first time they've been in 5 years, and they didn't have repeats to go back to try and check the voices to see how they sounded. They probably wiped the tapes by this point of the original episodes, so they're essentially going in blind. The guys that are playing doing the Dalek voices, so you can sort of see why they're not quite right, but as bad as they are, it's.
It reminded me a lot of my early days at art college when one of the lecturers decided to do an icebreaker, and it was playing out a scene from Doctor Who that he'd written the script for, but he forgot the fact that he'd forgotten a lot of the
one
fact
of those
that,
fans.
Yes, exactly. He'd forgotten the kind of idea that many of the students would be from overseas, and there was a whole contingent of Swedish students. And my mate Anders, bless him, got handed this script and had to play a Dalek. He had no concept what a Dalek was, and his only line was exterminate. And he ends up just going, exterminate. And that's the tone of it, exterminate. He said it
in the tone of the Swedish chef.
Alex.
It's pretty much like Hurdy-burdy, exterminate.
Exterminate, bok.
Genuinely, bless him, he just looked like the most confused man in the room. And we had to, obviously this was before YouTube or anything like that. This was in 2001. So we had to basically dig out a videotape and show him afterwards. So he's kind of going, oh hell, I fucked that up. And I was like, you didn't know. But that's what it felt like to me. It felt like someone who doesn't know quite what it is.
And that tutor went on to write for Big Finish.
He probably has, to be fair.
Probably does, yeah.
It wouldn't shock me.
I think we all do at some point, do we not?
Um,
That's the way it works.
Some of us apply and then get knocked back. That's all I'll say. Some of us have a fucking belter of a story, which I'm trying to convert. I'm now converting to not feature the Doctor, but the same
Just out of
core
spite.
idea. Because I thought it was a good idea, and I liked it, and I
It
was
was.
having fun writing the sixth Doctor's dialogue. Never
Yeah,
mind.
but Nick
Never mind,
Briggs
it's okay.
wouldn't allow it.
No, he read it and went, no, having that.
That's not a part for me. I'm not interested.
No, I should have probably. That's where I went wrong.
Should
I
have
should have
cast
written
Nick
a
Briggs
part
in
for
every
Nick
role.
Briggs.
That's the key.
I learn these things.
So, the Dalek voices.
Short, the Big Finish 2022 short trips would have been very different.
I can't argue with that. Yes, the Dalek voices are a bit slow and ropey. But as I said, that's because the Daleks are not a great character for moving anything forward. But I think the defense of that would be that the Daleks, yeah, they're not great at moving things forward. They're very one-dimensional. And that dimension is that they hate everything. These Daleks do hate everything. They're quite nice that way. They're not going, mercy, or any of the other crap that the modern ones do. They're just, no, we don't like it, kill it. It's proper Daleks.
It's not just exclusive to the Daleks. I mean, the Cybermen and the Sontarans are essentially one note as well. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
bit more scope to do something interesting with them. But most of the time, it's kind of stock. Either delete or, wage war and everything.
Yeah.
So
And
I
that's
think
the thing,
outside those big three, it's kind of more scope to do things with them. They're kind of setting a pattern, those ones.
Well, you say that, but if this had just been the Ogrons the whole time in this story, how would that have worked? You take away the Daleks, that's fine. It's just the Ogrons are the bad guys. So you suddenly believe that the Ogrons are running future Earth? Is that how they would have done it without the Daleks? Or would it just been a completely different story? Because you can't see the Ogrons doing anything except Ogron smash, because that's all they do in this. You can't see them being any less one-dimensional than the Daleks are, but you can't see them being any more dimensional than that either. Because the bad guys are just the bad guys, and that's all they do. So I think if you had taken the slow-talking Daleks out, it wouldn't have been this. It would have been a different story. And we're only discussing this story.
Yes, of course.
Okay, all done on that?
I think so.
Okay, we're at the point when we're doing a podcast version of this that we normally take a break. It's 3 bits of evidence each. So, shall we have a quick couple of minutes break? We can
Yes.
get another drink in,
yes.
give the viewers a rest for a moment. And when we come back, we'll do the remaining points of evidence and have the summings up, and we'll reveal the results of the vote as we have it. So,
And
we
if
will
you-
be...
Yep.
I was going to say, if they want to, the link's in the description. They can go vote now while we go get a drink.
Yep, I will just put that back up on screen. There it is. So that's what we'll do. We're going to have a couple of minutes break and we'll be back very shortly. See you in a minute.
and the video has ended and we may have returned.
We might have returned, but Lee has not.
No, which is quite
That's
funny because we're still
unfortunate.
broadcasting live right now, but Lee isn't here.
Love it.
Because
Are you and me supposed to provide entertainment then?
I've no idea because
Oh,
I've got
here it comes.
YouTube open on another window, so I can see that we're on YouTube live right now without the command and control.
Nice.
Somebody needs
Shutting
to
the
make a
door.
longer video for the breaks.
I think someone does. I think, we live and they learn. This is like the live thing.
Welcome back to
Judge.
all. I'll wait for him to get his headphones in, settle down, scratch his nuts, that kind of thing.
And that, folks, is what happens when you put on the short version of the back soon video and not the elongated version you made earlier on.
Yes. Just
Slick,
thinking that.
isn't it?
That was
That's
smooth.
That was
Oh,
smooth.
just pulled my
That's,
trousers back up. Jesus. That could have gone wrong.
I could have done, yeah. Would be the first time that would have happened either, Cam, would it have? Let's be honest. It's,
Well, yeah, it's true. But we don't talk about it because that was what we agreed in the court.
so that's
Not
something
this
to do
one,
for...
the actual
Oh,
one.
this one, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something to do for episode 2, put the long version of that card in. Okay, well, we're back. We have been for probably about 5 minutes for all I know, because I've just walked back in the room.
Only about 1 or 2, to be fair.
Okay, right, that's not too bad then. Shall we carry on then? Let's have another points for the defence, Dave.
But before my point for the defence, I want to bring up a factoid that I just found out during the break.
Okay, on you go.
So the actor James Edward Winston Langworth, who played Shura, do you know what else he did with his life? He was the original keyboard player in the Small Faces.
Was he?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh. Well, not only is a man of action making the most of his 5 minutes in Doctor Who, he's now a hero as well.
Yep.
Bloody hell.
Small
that's
Faces,
So-
stage musical hair.
So was he the
and
keyboard
Doctor
player
Who.
before Ian McLachen then?
I would guess so, since he was the original one,
Brilliant.
yes.
Good
Yeah.
God, we've turned it a bloody whistle test now.
Okay. And we'll have more from Shiro's Mercenaries later in tonight's programme.
At the end, yes. I like, by the way, I've just noticed as well, by the way, that my real estate for my camera is kind of covered by the Polis Box logo. So if I just look to be really, really shy, I could just kind of do this and just like talk to you like this. And it's just like, no one else has got that. I just have to house the logo here. I was going to that side. I went to this side. I was like, oh no, wait a minute, hold on. I need to go to this side. There we go. Thanks.
I could probably do it from my side to hide the cat that you can see.
Sorry,
laughing
just
in the
noticed
back.
that.
There he is, washing his
Oh.
arse live on the internet. That's what you came here for, folks.
Lovely.
Yeah, but time
Yes.
that is what people
I
want
too am
from your
quite
pod.
shocked.
He's great.
Probably.
He's
I
unsurprised.
too am quite shocked. I've not been visited by my dog yet, so it'll happen.
Yeah.
She'll
I'm really distracted by the cat
pop
washing his
up
backside now.
eventually. I know she will.
That's all I can see.
We can all see it, but thankfully we can't hear it.
Right. Shall we move away from this and get back into the trial?
Away from the cat's anus.
Yes.
Let's move away. Let's carry on. Let's
As a
carry
general rule, it's a good idea.
on. Yes.
Okay, Dave, let's have another point for the defence then.
Yeah.
This is kind of quite a small point. There's the scene where the reporter is actually on scene for the meeting at the country house. That seemed quite unusual for the classic Doctor Who stuff. They never brought in what is basically an outside character. Like, it's all the characters they had were people that had been in every single episode. It's quite weird that they brought people in just for the 4th episode, where they had the ambassadors coming in with their horrendously possibly racist clothes on, and the reporter outside. Like, you'd expect the Unit 5 people to be the same 5 Unit people in every episode. The Ogrons were the same, the actors were the same, the Rebels were the same. But suddenly there's these extra half-dozen people bought in for the story. And it strikes me as really weird that Doctor Who in the 70s did that, because I don't remember it happening in other things that the Doctor Who made.
It happens at the end of this. Oh no, it's at the end of the series, end of the next series, in the Damons they have on the sport reporter from BBC Three
I
of all
was just about
channels.
to mention Damon. Yeah.
Yeah. But it struck me as quite unusual and quite a nice touch. because it made it feel a bit more almost realistic.
Yeah.
Because it's like what they do in big Hollywood films now, where they go live and out of the scene as whoever.
They kind of do it in the War Machines as well, because they get an actual newsreader. I think it's Kenneth Kendall, who appears like on a pub TV screen, kind of like what they do in Russell T Davies Years of Doctor Who, but it's like the American newsreader woman comes on and
Yeah.
flicking through the channels, there are all different news reports. So they've kind of done that sort of thing before, but I think this is the first instance of an actual on-the-spot reporter
Yeah.
not being sort of an active part of the story, kind of like a bridge to making it a bit more sort of grounded in the present day. But
It is, as we just sort of briefly mentioned, it is something that Russell T Davies kind of leans on a hell of a lot in the modern Doctor Who, and probably, I assume, still will when he comes back.
yes.
It's when he gets no newsreaders, such as names who temporarily escape me, the Welsh fella.
Yes.
Yeah, when he comes into it, and then during the terrible mess that is Fear.
And then he comes in it, and then we find out that he's come into it and he's cancelled.
Yeah.
Possibility, yes.
We've just had a comment through from Mark Donaldson on the Timelash. I'm assuming he's talking about the cat when he says it's washing his arse live on the internet. That now, I don't know what happened when I was out of the room there at the break. Is there something you two want to tell me, or
It's just
can you
quite
confirm it
warm
was the
sitting
cat?
here. I was feeling a bit sweaty. Just thought I'd
Okay.
cleanse myself a bit.
Just making sure. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Dave's got a supply of wet wipes underneath his desk, so he needs to use them.
Yeah. We don't know what made them wet. They weren't wet when I put them under there.
I know, they're just tissues beforehand.
Yep.
Dave said he was going to tone it down tonight. Now he's back.
He
Well, I
is!
have.
The veil has lifted.
So yeah, that scene to me just felt nice. It felt almost realistic. Like we go live now to our exposition reporter on the scene, which, as you say, is something they do quite frequently in modern Who, but it's not often that you see it in classic Who. And I think it was probably just the wages for the extra staff.
Possible. I mean, it's a nice little touch, but it's like a 10-second visual flourish in a 4-part story.
You can't complain that it was really dark and then complain about visual flourishes. Make your mind up, Phillips.
Well, I describe it as a flourish because you seem to think it is. It's fine. It gives it a kind of grounding in some kind of reality. It does. Otherwise, that entire scene at the end, which we'll get back to, but it does have something of a. It's a little bit lackluster, and they probably, I guess, did something like that to give it some kind of pizzazz. It works to a degree, but it doesn't quite save that finale from being as it is in the original version, anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's a nice scene. As you said, it's a flourish.
Oh yeah, I'm
And
not. It's a
they've
nice
done
scene.
well.
It's a wee flourish, but it doesn't really cover a lot of ground. It doesn't save anything from being quite flat at the end.
And that's the thing.
I don't
Are
think
the
it's a major
costumes
plot point. It was just a nice little thing to have in.
You both spoke at once there.
Well, sorry.
Are the ambassador costumes racist? Was my question.
Well, I think it's difficult.
That's leaning towards yes.
I
It's
don't think
difficult
they
in the
are.
sense of you're trying to basically shorthand identity or national identity into a TV show, and without them, you maybe could have gone down the avenue of this news reporter interviewing them, and you could have said, little captions below the screen, representative from America, blah 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 blah, and representative from China, da 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 da. Hey, you sir, here today at blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, that probably would have worked and probably been a little bit less, but to cut to the absolute chase, you want people being dressed up in whatever their national dress happens to be, you know.
Yeah.
If that involves... And here are the Dutch delegation. You can hear them because the clogs are battering against the wooden... the stone steps leading up to the house. It's like going... And here are the Russians, Cossack dancing through the front door. And stuff like that. You know, I mean, it's not like... I don't think it's like a malicious racism going on. But I think it is just kind of lazy TV shorthand, and that's what they would have worked with.
There's definitely been more problematic representations of race in Doctor Who, let's be honest.
Oh, God, yes. And there will be, as far as this is, you know, at this stage in Doctor Who, there will be definitely worse to come. Talons. Is Talons and Weng Chiang not the only one on BritBox to have like a "this is what it was at the time" warning?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's
the one that is massively obviously racist.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, totally. That is horrendous. But yeah, I think it's just from a visual point of view and getting the point across. Look, there's Chinese people and Americans and Britain in this conference, but that seems to be about it for preventing a world war. But anyway, yeah, from that point of view, why am I defending this? It's terrible, though. It's terrible. It's stinking racism. It's awful.
Okay. Anything like that, Dave?
No, I just like that scene. I'll talk about it.
Okay. All right, that's fine. That's a perfectly valid point to bring towards the courtroom then. Okay, then Cam, let's have another point for the prosecution then.
Okay, the Doctor seems to spend the entire story in one of two situations. Firstly, it's being taken prisoner and or being tortured by someone. And secondly, it's sitting down with the same people, drinking wine and or having exposition fired his way. There's a heck of a lot of talking about what's going on and not so much showing it. Joe just about fits this template as well. It's just... It descends into this almost farcical, oh, the Doctor's tied up. Oh, no, he's not. He's talking to someone. Oh, they've captured him again. Oh, no, he's free again. He's talking to someone. Oh, he's freed himself and they have the most pointless bike chase to fill in 5 minutes. Oh, he's captured again. Oh, he's getting tortured. He's a spy! He's a spy! Oh, he's free again. He's eating some grapes and drinking some wine. And then he's back again. And it just, that's all that seems to happen during this. There just seems to be flicking back and forth between those two states. Captured and tortured, or drinking wine and eating grapes. There seems to be nothing in between.
What would there be in between action scenes and non-action scenes? What would you like to have bridge the two?
But they're not even action
Scenes
scenes.
where he's
Unless you count action as being, you know, a dinner party of like a few cheese crackers here and there. It's not really that much. And also, as I say, it does the pinnacle of it is that bike chase about halfway through, which I think we can all agree is kind of pointless.
There's a fair bit of hand-to-hand combat. There's several, I don't say battle scenes, but battle scenes involving people. Just because the Doctor isn't on the front line shooting people, except when he is on the front line shooting people a couple of times, you can't say there's no.
Yes.
There's only two scenes, or two types of scene. Because yes, predominantly the Doctor talks to people, because that's what the Doctor does. When he's not talking to people, he's either running to somewhere or running away from somewhere, or having a bit of a fight. That's basically all of Pertwee's Doctors. That's like all he does in every story. It's either chat or drink or fight. I mean, he's basically playing himself.
But it's but it seems to be particularly prominent in this story that it's there's just those two types of scenes and that's it. There's no sort of like him doing around any kind of like investigating. There's no kind of him, just any
There's
sort
no
of
scenes of
advancing
him
in
testing
a long.
a laser weapon from the future. There's no scenes like that. No.
No, none at all. It's just that's what I found. Most of the time he's just in one of those two things, and it got really weird at the end. And can we agree that bike? Please, can we agree that bike chase is pointless?
That's awful. It is the least action
It is awful.
sequence in Doctor Who history, isn't it?
They haven't
Yes, it
pumped
is.
up them tyres for a start. That's a health and safety nightmare. He's going to get a
hell
blow.
of a ladder. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they just seem to just go around in a literal circle around a wee bit of
It's up
grassland.
any hill.
Putting
And
them
it's
along
almost
at
like
10
they
miles
want
an hour
to-
doesn't.
Yeah,
Doesn't scream action, does it?
It's kind of like the whole thing of you get the funny feeling that Pertwee just looked at that bike and went, "Wouldn't mind having a go at that. Can we film that?" And they went, "Go on then, John." And he's just
I think
like,
that's
"Okay,
I think that's essentially what happened. Is he wanted to get this bike in. They either found it or it was something he had in his own personal collection. He wanted to use it, so
Yeah.
they just like indulged him in his like 10 miles an hour low stakes
Yeah,
bike chase.
it's where it's
That
like
was 20
they go to the
seconds.
effort to escape. They get on the bike. You're kind of thinking, "Oh, this will be him. He'll escape," and it'll be like, "Oh yeah, they're doing this over there, and it's terrible. We need to storm there and get into that, and let's convince all these troops to come with us, and it's going to be great." And blah blah blah. Battle, her, and then it ends up like, nope, they escape. They ride around for 5 minutes, and then they get captured again, and then they have all plastic face decide to tell them what's what, and then that's it. He looks ill, by the way. He looks. Was that? And again, a weird decision. He looks genuinely quite ill. He looks like he should be queuing at the chemist at 9 a.m. You know, there's something no right about him. You know, no one else in the future is as plasticky as he is.
It is an interesting choice of makeup they've gone with on him.
It
It's
really
very
is.
shiny.
Oh, Christ! You're not joking. You're not joking.
And of course, that was the inspiration for the vampires in Twilight who glitter in the sunlight. Wasn't really, I just made that up.
I was going to say, have you checked the Twilight Wikipedia for that? Yeah.
No.
You
No.
could have that as another reason why it's so influential, Dave, but you're blowing it now.
The writer
I'm
of
sorry.
the writer of Twilight is known as referring to Day of the Daleks as the key inspiration. Oh dear.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we all?
War bike chase is bad,
Oh.
and shiny face is also bad. But I think you're wrong when you say there's only two types of scene. Because there's the sciencey scenes, there's the few hand-to-hand scenes the Doctor has with people. Yes, there's the 2 or 3 scenes where he's sitting drinking, and obviously there's the scenes where he gets tortured. But that's just some of the scenes, and there's lots of different ones in this. I don't think you can say there's only 2 types of scenes the Doctor's in.
How many times in this is the Doctor tied up?
I don't know.
I can get 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, I think it's maybe 3.
Probably twice in the cellar. There's once on the sort of 3rd episode cliffhanger when the Daleks are there, you know, he's on the table. And there's another one
that's
where
right.
it's like the guy's going, you know, who sent you? We haven't got much time. It's 4.
to use a
possibly
better
more.
euphemism, he's a spy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's Ben's right. It's like, he's a spy, he's a spy. There's a lot of that goes on in this. And yeah, so it's like, so at least once per episode the Doctor's tied up. So I was beginning to get a little bit of deja vu towards the end, is what I'll say.
Yes, it does happen with alarming frequency, but it's, yeah. We're just going to keep arguing the same point.
I was alarmed. Definitely.
Yes.
Right. There we go.
Okay, sounds like we're
Move
done
on,
with that
Judge.
one. Let's move on. Right, Dave, do you want to give us another point for the defence?
And this one's a
Yeah.
political one.
Oh,
I was
okay.
just looking through my list. They talk about a war between Russia and China. That's what they're trying to prevent. Those actually happened in the 60s and 70s. Like, it's not a big publicised thing, but that was an actual risk in the 70s that Russia and China were going to have a full-on war. And it's not something that a lot of people know about now. It's not something that ever really got talked about. They never made films about it, because they didn't talk about it at the time, because it was Russia and China keeping shit quiet. But the fact that Doctor Who did a story where it was Russia and China that were going to go to war, I think is quite interesting. Because, as I say, not many people talked about it. But there were actual full-on tank battles between Russia and China over areas of the border. So the fact that Doctor Who writers thought, this is interesting, we should make a story about this, because this could happen. It's not the fantastical nonsense or made-up countries. It's based on actual historical events. But it's not a historical, so they've not gone back in time to when this happened. It's not let's go back to Genghis Khan. It's not let's go back to Pompeii before it burns down. It's this is happening when we're making this story. This could actually happen this year, next year. And it's quite an unusual thing for Doctor Who to write a story, film it, and put it on television when it could actually happen. Like, it's not likely that the Titanic's going to appear over London on Christmas Day. But when they did this, it was possible / likely that Russia and China actually were having wars. So I think it's quite interesting to use the actual politics of the time to come up with a story, and manage to get past the BBC.
I was going to say, can you imagine if they tried that now? If they made a whole Doctor Who story about
Trying to stop nuke launches in North Korea.
Yeah, about how, it would be very, very
Yeah.
I know people like to say
inherent
that
risk.
I know people like to say that Doctor Who can do any story at all, but there are limits.
Oh, there will be definitely limits.
As we saw that in 9/11 video that somebody made as a fan film that we put in the group chat a few weeks ago.
I wasn't in
That
the group
was,
chat yet, so I missed it.
Something. Trust me, it was something.
I do not remember this, but never mind.
Now, when somebody fan makes a Doctor Who 9/11 video, can I just check, was he trying to stop 9/11 or was he flying a plane?
Yeah. It's a fixed moment in time. We can't save anyone. No. Then Peter Davison from Time Flight arrives on Concorde through a portal.
Him in one, Phil Collins in the other. Just knock the planes out the sky, everybody's safe.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that it was only a small clip of it, but I think the suggestion is that the bad guys get trapped on the planes that go into the towers, which suggests that the Doctor puts them there.
Wow.
Yes, exactly. It's probably on
Whoa.
YouTube. If you're curious, go and have a look at it. But yeah, the levels of taste are practically in the mines. That's how bad it gets.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Doctor Who can't do any story at all. Let's just be clear on that.
No, there are definitely limits to be had. Definitely limits to be had.
Yeah.
Sweet Jesus. So where were we?
I can't remember now. Sorry.
Doctor Who making a story about current news events.
Yes, current news events. Yeah, good on them. It's not like that's my personal main takeaway from this, though.
Can I point out that actually there's been another Doctor Who story that's used current events as one of its main things of it, and it was Fear Her.
Well, it was a few years away for 2012, but yeah.
Yeah.
We all know how well that went.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying to that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But,
Fair play. It uses real... So you're talking about not like a historical event that's already happened that they're quite safe with, like your Rosa Parks, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying they're quite safe with Rosa Parks because Jesus, you probably still have people. Oh, they'll work. I like myself a wee bit of racism. But it's like out of context. That's going to be weird. But yeah, so for doing something that could happen. I mean, yeah, the equivalent now would be if we had Ncuti Gatwa running around Moscow, which I'm not guaranteed is not going to happen.
Never say never.
Yeah.
Where have we landed? Oh, we're in the Donetsk region. Oh, right, okay.
Shall we just?
What year is it? Oh, it's 2022. Oops. Should we just get back now? Let's get back now. Yeah. Fair play, yeah, brave, but I wouldn't say it's going to be anyone's main takeaway from this story.
Well, we're like an hour and a half into the recording, or the broadcast as it is now. So it's not my main takeaway. It's just an interesting point that it's a Doctor Who story based on things that were happening at the time, which you wouldn't necessarily get now.
Okay, sounds like we're finished with that one.
Yep.
Okay then. Cam, do you want to give us another point for the prosecution?
We've already spoken about the style of dialogue, but there are some rough arse edges on this script. I will give you, as I alluded to on Twitter a little while ago, the woman in it says, "We are soldiers, not murderers," approximately 30 seconds after arriving through time to execute someone. Which you'd kind of maybe pick up on that in a script edit, but never mind. Also at the end, I was like, I forgot about this bit until I watched it again today, when Styles says what happened when he's looking at the wreckage of a burning house that has just exploded in his presence. So they're like, that's what happened, mate. The fucking house blew up. So yeah, there's a couple of lines in this that are just a little bit on the dodge side for me that would have probably been picked up in the edit. Also, as far as a storyline kind of goes, there's a lot of talk about factories and 10% production, and it's like, what the fuck are they mining? Because when we see it, in the one scene that we see it, it looks like they're just emptying the Scaffy motors.
Yep.
So it's like, and I know they kind of go, oh, they need materials for this, that, and the next thing, but it's all a bit vague as to what they need. It was like, fine, you just like say you're mining whatever, make up an element. Who cares? You know, it's important to them to fucking mine something to shine their eye lenses or something. I don't know. But just it just seems like kind of going, oh, the factories must have 10% of what, you know. It's
and how much more is 10%?
Yeah, you've got no basis in what that is. I mean, I think it kind of reminds me, we hark back to, we mentioned it already once this evening, but Caves of Adrazzani, when they talk about production of the, I mean, at least that's something, you know, it's like a drug that keeps people young. Fine, it supplies this rich planet and keeps people young and healthy, and oh, isn't great. That's great, because it has a basis and it has a use. Whereas this just feels like they're just chipping away at rocks for no apparent reason.
Yeah, but that's because it's the controller's the third generation. They must have strip mined everything they could years ago. They've been doing this for ages. So whatever is left now is going to be the dregs. But they're only mining it because that's what they do. They use the poor humans and just mine it, and they don't care that they don't get much quality stuff. Because it's only humans, they don't care. So it's not a high efficiency production line anymore. They are just mining mud. But it's only people, nobody cares.
So they want 10% more mud?
Yeah. Well,
doesn't everybody?
I think the Daleks only care that they've not made quota. So make them make more quota next week.
Of mud?
Of mud. Yeah.
That Dalek mud that they put on their face to look so young.
Keeps them fresh.
On their little squidgy faces.
They want to get rid of the mud, so they've got a nice smooth surface to roll over.
Yeah, so that's why they're mining mud.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Perfect plan.
All the sense in the world. Absolutely all the sense in the world.
How anybody can find this guilty after an argument like that is beyond me.
An argument like that, yeah. We know. I stand corrected. They're mining mud. It's all clear to me now. What a fucking idiot I am.
While I fire up 57 sock puppet accounts to win this vote.
Get them tabs open on Chrome. Come on.
I'm keeping an eye on the vote. I'm looking for unusual activity here.
Now we're looking for you news after 6 years.
Okay, right. Given that we've been going for an hour and a half, shall we have one more bit of evidence before we wrap things up?
Yeah, we both should.
You can choose from what you've got at your disposal still. We'll go to Cam first then for a point for the prosecution, if you're ready, Cam.
Okay, bar the fact that this is a Dalek story that didn't really need to have Daleks, my second biggest bugbear in this is the ending. And I know we're going to say, oh, they solved it in a special edition, it's all great now. Haven't seen that, yet to watch that. We can only. That's why I was checking earlier on today, do we go on the original broadcast or does this stand? We essentially spend 4 episodes building up to probably one of the weakest looking invasions of a house / castle / base, whatever, in Doctor Who, in that it is literally probably about 5 Ogrons and 3 Daleks. And that's it. That's all there is. It doesn't look great. And I know we're going to say, yeah, they solved it in a special edition. Or I know we're going to say, yeah, but the main story's not them, it's in the basement with the guy standing by with the bomb and he's setting off. It's just, this is what you spent 4 episodes building up to, and it does feel like a bit of a damp squib, apart from the explosion at the end. But the actual kind of lead up to that feels pretty underwhelming.
Okay, Dave, you come back in that.
Yeah, some of the visual effects are ropey, as you say, fixing the special edition, but we don't talk about that. But it's 1970s Doctor Who. As you said, they had 3 Daleks, 5 Ogrons, and 8 actors, and a budget of probably about 75 pence, all of which was spent on 12 minutes of electricity. This was made, 5 years before Star Wars? The first Star Wars film was 77?
Roughly about that, yeah. Aye.
So it's 5 years before Star Wars.
Yeah, something rough about that, yeah.
But it's on a much smaller budget. This is basically Star Wars. It's laser battles, evil overlords, rebel scum, and a dynastic succession for who's in control of the evil planet. That's it. That's the story of the first Star Wars film. And Doctor Who made that on a budget of 20 pence. Yeah, it looks like it was made on a budget of 20 pence. But that's because it was.
Yeah. I mean, you say laser battles, but it's laser battles without the lasers.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no attempt to have some sort of visual effect in those fight scenes.
Oh, come on, there is. People get shot with lasers and they explode.
Yeah, but you don't see the lasers.
I love
just
the
lots of noises of people going.
I love the 2 soldiers that literally, by the riverside at the end, that literally go...
But
like that.
That's because
I love
they're
that.
used to the 70s battle special effects where it's like you get shot and you just kind of glow a bit and then you disappear by magic. This you actually see people get hit and they explode. Which is unusual
In the
because...
special edition you do.
Yeah.
Not in the broadcast version you don't.
No, it literally just
No.
invert the screen
But-
into negative and then just like... Whirr.
Yeah. But it's not as well done as it could be now, as we know by the special edition
yeah.
that nobody's watched. But it's alright for the time. And the time and the budget they had available. And yes, I'm not saying it couldn't have been done better, but it was Britain in the 70s, the early 70s. They couldn't have
Does
done
it
it
not-
much better.
Does it not fall victim to that Doctor Who thing, though? And, there's a good percentage of Doctor Who that does, that has an idea and a story that the time and the budget and the production cannot possibly facilitate fully.
Yes.
And this,
But
you
that's
end up
very
with this
much
kind of
always
like halfway house, maybe-ish. And sometimes it comes off as like, oh, you can see what they maybe wanted to do, and this is okay. But in this situation, probably not. I would say anyway, it's pretty underwhelming by the fact that they went and fixed it in a re-release.
Yeah, but did they fix it in the re-release because they wanted to fix it, or because they wanted to sell yet more copies? And knowing
Well,
that at least
possibly
one
a
of
combination of the two.
yeah,
Is this the first Doctor Who story that's ever been patched? Is what I'm asking.
There's been some when they've done the DVD releases in the classic range. But I don't know if they precede this. Because this came out about maybe 10, 11 years ago, maybe. I think about 2010, 2011. So it might be one of the earlier examples of it. Well, it's the first, I don't know. But it's probably quite early on in that sort of process of adding CGI effects to things.
Okay. Okay. Dave's looking this up now.
Dave is looking this up, isn't he?
well,
He is looking
September
this up.
2011. Yes, 2011. The DVD came out with new footage, new effects, and the voice of Nicholas Briggs. Because obviously,
Of course, yeah.
Oh, they replaced the voices as well.
yes.
Good. I probably need to watch the special version then.
It does make a big
Yeah.
improvement on the Dalek voices.
I was kind of
Yes.
wondering what disc 2 was all about in the one I've got. I was a bit like,
Well, now
oh, fuck,
you
does this
know.
need 2 discs? And it's only today
Yeah.
when I went, oh, fuck, right.
The 2-disc DVD contains both the original version and the second disc, a special edition version with new effects.
Way, right, I'll go back and watch that then.
Pop that and have a look.
I'll pop that and have
Yeah.
a look. I probably should have done that before today, but never mind.
Okay, done with
But
that?
yeah, it can be improved, but not by them at the time. They couldn't have done much better with the time, budget, and stuff that they had.
If you're going to struggle with that, then why are you bothering doing it?
Wow, you should be a motivational speaker.
I should, yeah. What are you doing that for? Just lose. It's fine.
Yeah, if at first you don't
You know.
succeed, just lie down.
Give up.
Oh,
You know, it just motivational speech for the morning. We all end up in the ground.
On that cheery thought, shall we move on to the next and final point for
Yeah, go on
the defence? Dave, do you want to give us your final bit of evidence tonight?
my final bit of evidence is going to be the rebels. I like the rebels for a few reasons. One, they're wearing camouflage from the future, which actually looks like current camouflage patterns, so they predicted that well. They have not quite banter between them, but you feel that they've been forced together. These aren't the elite that have been handpicked to get this job done. This is just whatever they can find who's able and willing to do it. So there's the one that just wants to kill everyone, who's obviously a fucking lunatic, that they've brought along so they can sick him on people. There's the one that thinks about things and goes, well, maybe we should find out more orders. And there's the one that they send to run and find out new orders. So there's actually a nice little team of rebels. And they're believable as people who have been forced into this. They're not volunteers, they just don't want to accept the Dalek rule anymore. So they're nicely believable as rebels. They're not a rebel army, they're not a rebel force that's been trained, which makes me wonder where they got the camouflage clothes. But they're the rebels, and they're disparate, and they don't agree with each other. They argue, but they all come together for the common cause, like communism. So I like the rebels as a force. And it's also the fact that they adapt what they're doing. They're not like, we're the rebels, we're just going to fight the Daleks no matter what. They go towards the end, when the big time travel twist comes up, they go, wait a minute, nah, you're right, we should be on your side. And they help, rather than just completely going, we're just going to kill the Daleks. They change, and they develop, but they're believable from the very start as a disparate unit of people who don't necessarily like each other.
Someone in this story, if they've got matching uniforms, must be funding this rebellion. I can only assume it's people who are interjecting the mud supply and selling the mud on the black market.
More sense in it being a Kickstarter, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the woman join our Patreon, and you too can fund a guerrilla
Let's
rebellion
crowdfund the revolution.
in a far-flung time zone, far away from your own.
Patreon.com/mudfund.
Mud farmers. Mudrunners.com. She's got a hell of a line in makeup as well for being a guerrilla fighter from the far-flung future. So yeah, believable. Yeah, totally. As a unit, they are a little bit like, okay, we'll have one that's in charge, one that's following the orders, and a shouty one that just wants to kill people. And that'll be them basically arguing, yeah, fine, but it's not like any kind of earth-shattering conclusion that they come to. It's just like giving them something to do, basically. It's not anything wonderful that the writers have done. They're kind of a little bit interchangeable. There doesn't really need to be that, like, 3 of them there. Just send, like, 1. It's fine. You know, you could have used the budget to spend on another Dalek for the end. You know? You just had to sell more mud.
I don't think the problem was they couldn't afford more Daleks. I think there just weren't any more. I think there was only 3 in existence at the time. The rest have been buried in mud.
Would you be able to build more, or would you have to pay Terry Nation?
I think we probably have to pay Termination because we've used the word Dalek.
Jesus.
Several times. This is going to ruin us.
Well, that's our
We're going to have to start a
Patreon,
Kickstarter here.
Yeah,
Okay,
so yeah, it might well be. Yeah, the banter's great, but that's just kind of standard. It's not anything out of the ordinary.
Okay,
Yep.
any more on that, Dave?
Nope.
No, we're done. Okay, right. Given that was the last bits of evidence, do you want to start giving your summings up before we have a look at the vote and see how things stand? Cameron, do you want to just sum up why you think that Dave the Daleks is guilty of crimes against Doctor Who?
For once, I've actually prepared a summing up. I know you've all been asked in the past, and I've been like kind of going, "What are we doing summing up for?" But I thought, I've just noticed here, weeks ago
That's a
when we were
new
originally
era.
going to record this, exactly. Weeks ago when we were originally going to record this, I actually wrote a summing up, and I was like, wow, I'm dead proud of it. I didn't even remember I had until I flipped the page just now. So anyway, right, okay, what have I written? This could all go horribly wrong when I've written a load of fucking nonsense, but never mind. Right, Dave the Dalek falls victim to having a grand idea that 4 episodes of a BBC TV programme couldn't possibly facilitate. For all the talk of World War III and entire planets being strip mined, this entire story seems to just be the characters wandering around an industrial site. Everything about the story is uninspired, from the script itself to the set design. There's just a flat feeling when watching Day of the Dalek that's really hard to shake off. The Daleks seem wasted in just a bare bones plot that only really kicks into something approaching life about 90% in. Day of the Dalek. Mundane of the Dalek, more like.
Do you know, when we first went to record this, we had all those technical issues, and you said to me afterwards, "I've got a joke I'm really proud of." Was that the joke? Just to be clear, yeah.
No. I've only just realised I've written that. I don't know what the joke was that I was really proud of now. I've forgotten.
Okay. Yeah,
I was so proud of it, I've forgotten what it was.
Backpedaling, I think. Okay, Dave, do you want to give us your summing up for the defence of the Daleks? Why is it not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who?
So, this has got a clever recursive plot, which time travel paradoxes. This is 10 years before the Terminator came out. The idea of going back into history to change things that have happened, to change the future you come from, was new and different. It features the cheap and nasty time travel device, which we now would think of as a vortex manipulator. They had it then, it was original then. Halfway through this, we know who all the main players are, we know what's going to happen, and we're starting to look forward to it. I don't agree with Cameron. I think the pacing in this builds up nicely, so that by the 4th episode you know what's going to happen, but you're waiting for it to happen. I think the good thing about classic filming pressures of budget and timing and having a film on film is it means that you don't get filler scenes. Now this would be an extra 5 minutes because we'd have Ryan flirting with somebody that never goes anywhere. This, every scene is necessary. The whole history being written by the Victor part is a great part of the story. The time loop causality of the finish of this is both obvious and easy to follow, whilst being timey-wimey stuff and confusing. And it also shows the power that half-truths and rumours have as they grow when time passes into the future. There's bits of this where they talk about the fact that science is the same as witchcraft if you don't understand the science behind it, which Doctor Who comes back to again and again. Overall, this is a good Doctor Who story that has some flaws but also some strengths. It's worth watching because it's got good drama and good entertainment value, especially the special edition, which I know we're not voting on, but that improves some of the weaknesses. So I think this deserves more appreciation based on what it is as originally broadcast. But if you judge it by the special edition, even though we're not, I think it's definitely not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who.
Okay then, 2 strong summings up then. So the time has come. We're going to have another short break. Hopefully longer than 2 minutes this time, because I've put the video on a loop, so it won't suddenly cut back to us unexpectedly. In just a moment or two, the vote is going to close, so if you want to get your votes in, now's the time to do it. The link is at the bottom of the screen or in the description of the YouTube or Facebook videos. Go place your vote just now. We'll do the results as they stand in just a few minutes.
Before we go,
Yes.
I was going to say, can I point out that I have actually already voted, so I'd recommend that Cameron goes and votes as well.
Right.
Just
You
in
do
case it's
realise
a
that you're not
landslide.
allowed to vote for your own arguments here. I mean, this.
Oh,
Right. Okay. I think we should balance it up then.
I
So,
think I
Cam,
did
you
it.
go and vote.
where am I going? I'm going
I'll
to
be-
Facebook, okay?
I've put a link in the description of Facebook and YouTube, as I've said twice. But you're not listening, Cam.
You see, this is why my
I'm
vote
just-
counts, because I
alright.
listen.
Okay.
Hold on.
While Cam's doing that, we're going to go to a short break. We'll let him get that sorted out. Time for you to place your votes as well if you've not already done so. We'll reveal the results in just a couple of minutes' time. We'll see you soon. Okay, we're back. The voting has now closed for the moment. Now, before we came on air, we did discuss at what point we would announce the result. Now, usually we put a vote up for the podcast version of this. We have it run for 7 days. We did say if we got over 6 votes tonight, then we would declare that the final result for Day of the Daleks. I can tell you, we've had 7 votes, so this result will stand. It will go to an extension in time for next episode. So, shall we find out what the final results were?
Nah, let's not bother.
Because that's the foremost. Just back in now. Good night, guys.
Okay then,
It's been
good
nice.
night! Thanks for watching for 2 hours, it's been pointless.
Oh, great, that's not a copyright claim.
Oh, God. I've Osmond battering down my door. Right, let's find out. The results are in, the vote is closed. Is Day of the Daleks guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who? Here's the result. That was a bit loud. But anyway, there you go. That's the result. 86% have found Day of the Daleks not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who to 14%. Dave, you've won the first episode. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So can I just check, the only person that voted for Cam's side then is Cam?
It would appear so.
It seems that way.
So,
Excellent.
if we're discounting Cameron's vote, it's a complete landslide.
So if I hadn't mentioned that I'd voted and told Cameron to go and vote,
So,
it would have
you know,
been 100%.
Cameron's been on. Yeah, it would have been 100% not guilty.
Me and my
Well,
big mouth.
But then it would have been 6 votes, so we went to an extension anyway. So, but Cameron's kind of done himself really here. So, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been better just not bothering to vote, would it?
Honestly, it's the best
Thinking about
policy,
it,
really, isn't it? So,
Oh, it would have been 6 folk, and then we would have gone out to an actual one on the Twitter sphere,
Yeah.
and then we all know how well Twitter's working these days, and that would have been it.
You've learned a valuable lesson here, Cameron. Just don't be
I learned a
honest.
valuable lesson of just don't bother.
So there we go. Day of the Daleks, it goes into the canon of Doctor Who. It's 86% not guilty to 14% guilty. It has survived. It deserves its place in the canon of Doctor Who and lives on to fight another day.
Is now a good time to do the whole thing of, you know, those times you have to prosecute ones you actually like?
Yeah, that old excuse, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. That, as I say, the result. We've had another comment in.
Yes, we have.
It's from your ma, which I assume is Kev. You helped us out with the test stream of this last week. Your back soon music is a disconcerting mix of Sharp, Jason and the Argonauts, and the Animals of Farthing Woods. Which is not a description I've ever heard of the Peter Howell theme tune for Doctor Who before, but there you go.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, if anything
Yeah,
deserves to be
that's
put to a vote on Twitter, it's that. You know, so
Yep.
Probably, yeah, exactly.
what's that on Twitter? You can vote on that one instead. Right. So that's it for Day of the Daleks. When we come back in probably about 3 or 4 weeks' time, because we decided, being as wise as we are, we launched this just at the point where it's the summer holidays and everybody goes away. So Dave's away on holiday in the next couple of weeks. So our next episode is going to be the 10th of August. Once again, we'll be live on YouTube and Facebook Live, and we'll have our first of our special guests when we put the Curse of Peladon on trial. It'll be Richie Morgan, who has been on the podcast before. He has, yeah.
Is Richie defending or prosecuting, did we decide?
Now,
What did he decide?
let me
We
just
might not
check.
know till he turns up. And then
I
just
get the funny feeling. I get the funny feeling he was defending. I get the funny feeling a lot of this series I'm going to be on my own. Is what I get
No,
a
but-
funny feeling about.
I have found we've got guests for the next 4 episodes up to the end of the series, and I've made sure it's an even split defence and prosecution, so it's not going to be too heavily weighted one way or the other. So I
Okay.
think he's possibly defending Curse of Peladon. I'm not sure. We'll check.
Oh.
We'll find out for sure when we come back next time. But yeah, Richie will be joining us for the Curse of Peladon trial in a few weeks' time.
It's been years since I've seen Peladon.
I can't remember the last time we watched that either. So
Is
we've got that
there
to
a
look
special
forward to.
edition of Peladon I should be aware of as a special effects budget?
I don't think so. No, I think it's just the bog
okay.
standards as it went out at the time. So there we go.
Fair enough.
So yeah, that's the end of tonight's episode. Thanks very much. We have had a handful of people watching, which is better than we were expecting. It's been around about 6 or 7 tonight. So if you've been watching all the way through, thanks very much for putting up with this. It'll be much slicker, kind of, next time.
Will it what?
Well, I'll have the videos a little bit longer so it doesn't unexpectedly come back. So
Yeah, so
that'll be
it's a bit
something.
of a comeback, yeah.
But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for taking part. Hopefully we'll see you again next time. That's been it. This has been the Polis Box Live. Day of the Daleks. I've been Lee.
I've been Dave, and thanks for all the votes.
I've been Cameron, and thanks for the vote.
He's not bitter. He's absolutely fine about it. He's totally fine. Okay, we'll see you in about 4 weeks' time. Thanks again for watching. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Video. Good night, everybody.
Hey, good night, folks.
I said it'd be slick next time. The bar's
Slick
fairly low to
next
start
time,
off with.
yes.
See you later. Good night.